first hand over the session to our Honorable Secretary, Dr. George Reddy Garu,
Okay.
to address the gathering first.
Respected chief guest for today, our National President, Dr. Savita Malhotra ma'am, our South Zone President, Dr. M. Uma Shankar sir, and all the office bearers, Dr. Mahesh Gowda, Dr. Rajshekhar sir, Dr. Abhay Matkar sir, Dr. Lokesh, Dr. Arun, and the chairman for this Samanvi committee, Dr. Uma Jyoti madam, and all the members, Dr. Nivedita and team, Dr. Veda, everybody, and all the EC members who have joined on time, and the members of the Indian Psychiatric Society South Zonal Branch. Good evening. I think this is the first program for this year, and it is beyond expectation. Samanvi anyway will do a wonderful job. We know that, and I think that's why President Dr. Uma Shankar sir wanted Samanvi to start this year's activities. And we are very fortunate that we have our President, Dr. Savita Madam, who's here, and she will take up the activity in a big way from the Indian Psychiatric Society. Madam, thank you for encouraging us at the South Zonal level. We will definitely live up to your expectations in spreading awareness. And today's topic, I'm sure Dr. Aruna and team will definitely do a wonderful job. And with these few words, I think without taking much time, I would give him a hand over the proceeding to our President, Dr. M. Uma Shankar sir.
Good evening, all of you, and welcome to today's scientific session. This is by Women Empowerment Committee, our chairperson, Dr. Uma Jyoti Madam, and our today's chief guest, Dr. Savita Malhotra Madam, President IPS, and chairpersons, Dr. Aruna Yadiyal and Dr. Pallavi, and today's speakers, Dr. K. Ramakrishnan sir and Dr. R. Indumati, and respected South Zone Committee, Honorary Secretary Dr. George Reddy, and Dr. Mahesh Gowda is the treasurer, and Dr. Rajshekhar is the editor, and other EC members of the committee, and past President Dr. Abhay Matkar, and Dr. Lokesh, Honorary Secretary, pastor, and other office bearers, and also important thing is why what I want to say is usually first women. So this time we are starting with Women Empowerment Committee, this webinar. So definitely it will lead, and also we can have a very good discussion, good information out of this. So I congratulate the chairperson and other members like Dr. Nivedita and Dr. Veda, Dr. Aniyadal, LSA, and Dr. Adumati, all of them, I congratulate for starting this scientific session, and wish you all the best. Please proceed further.
Thank you, sir. I will request our Vice President, Dr. Arul Prakash sir. Sir, are you there, sir? Okay, over to you, Dr. Nivedita.
I now request our chairperson, Dr. Uma Jyoti Madam, to introduce the chief guest for today's webinar. Madam, over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Nivedita. Good evening, all. It is an honor to welcome you all for today's webinar, the first webinar of this year from Women Empower Committee's IPS South Zone Samanvi. We are happy to invite Dr. Savita Malhotra, President, Indian Psychiatric Society, as our chief guest. Madam, your remarkable achievements and leadership qualities have been a beacon of motivation for many. Your presence as chief guest is a great honor for us, and we believe your experiences and inputs would be invaluable to all of us. I present now brief CV of Madam Dr. Savita Malhotra, and she did her MBBS from IGMC Shimla and her post-graduation MD Psychiatry from PG. Sorry, 1 minute. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes, ma'am.
yes, ma'am. We can hear you, ma'am.
Okay, she did her MD from PGIMR Chandigarh, and she also did her PhD from PGI Chandigarh. She is fellow of American College of Psychiatrists. She is ex-dean and professor and HOD, Department of Psychiatry, PGIMR Chandigarh. She did her currently she is a senior consultant, Fortis Hospital, Mohali, Punjab. Her major contributions are 50 years in academic psychiatry, excellence in service, research, and teaching. She is honored by the International Association for Child and Adolescent Psychiatry and Allied Professions. And she is also honored by the American Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry for outstanding contribution and global leadership in the field of child psychiatry. She is recipient of S. Felicia Prize 2022 of World Association for Social Psychiatry. She is recipient of Women in Medicine Award 2024 of NAMS. She is past president of Asian Society for Child and Adolescent Psychiatry and Allied Professions. She is past president of Indian Association of Social Psychiatry. She is life president of Indian Association for Child and Adolescent Mental Health. She is currently the national president for Indian Psychiatric Society. She published a lot of papers, books, and she edited and authored a lot of chapters in many books. And she received many awards, numerous academic and research awards by national and international societies. Her hobbies are Urdu, poetry, music, and traveling. With this brief introduction, I request our President, Dr. Savita Malhotra ma'am, to give her message.
Thank you very much, Dr. Umajyoti. Thanks for this kind introduction. And at the outset, I must say that I am overjoyed and also a little overwhelmed by the warmth of this invitation to me by South Zone, the first webinar by Samanvi. And this is a great pleasure for me to be amongst friends from South Zone. And I know that the Samanvi has been in the past couple of years a very active and very very active committee, and probably the first committee which is Women Empowerment Committee in IPS. So South Zone has taken a leadership in that regard, and here I the South Zone leadership, the President Dr. Uma Shankar, Vice President Dr. Arul Prakash, our dear and very dynamic General Secretary George Reddy, Treasurer Mahesh Gowda, and Rajshekhar Bipeta, the honorary editor. They are all extremely, active, productive, and dynamic people leading the South Zone. And nonetheless, even the Women Empowerment Committee, chaired by Dr. Umajyoti, Nivedita, co-chair, LC Oman, Veda, the convener, Abhinami member, Aruna, Indumati advisor. So all these people, I mean, they are very good friends and very active members, and I have interacted with them. I have also participated and interacted and presented in the other Samanvi programs in the last years. And this is so encouraging and so heartening to see the women coming up in the leadership role. See, the topic for today, I was just wondering, women in work and power space. Women in work and power space. That's, I think, not in general about the place of women in society, but women when they come in the different arenas like work and also where they become leaders. So what are their challenges? What are their opportunities, and how are they able to perform? So this is very good and very insightful topic that has been kept here today. And when we talk of women in work and power space, I think we have to start from home. Like home is the first place where the women have to exhibit their work. They work without question, without necessarily remuneration, and without many a times even recognition, and also is the place where they exercise power. And the power over not just running the household, but also the power over making decisions about the future and life of children, and care of elders and so on. So the work and power space starts from home to begin with. And then, of course, there are other spaces where they go on after education. They go to work in offices. They go to work in corporate world, now also in politics, and maybe even in the international arena. And in all these spaces, the challenges and the struggles that the women face are to a great extent similar, but also I think to some extent different, depending on where they are working. But mostly their challenges are more or less similar. It starts with basically from what we say access to resources. Do they have access to resources are what? Money. Resources is decision. Resources is so women, when we look at in the patriarchal society, they have been kind of kept away from major decision making, from handling money, control of money, and so on and so forth. So access to resources becomes one of the things that they have to struggle with, and they have to deal with. And there are difficulties in at that level. Other level of difficulties they face is the power equation. Who has the say in the matters? For example, in the household, traditional Indian households, it may be males, which may be anybody, any male member, can be father, can be husband, can be even when they grow up, elder son, or it may be even the mother-in-law, or it may be somebody else, a grandmother, and so on. So I think the power equation again is different at home, and power equation at work. This is another thing that we say that there is a glass ceiling. We say that women are not able to reach up to the highest level of power and position because somehow they lag behind, partly also because of their own difficulties, and which many women are not able to overcome. And this is the kind of a paradox presented to them, or a challenge presented to them due to their gender-related and biological responsibilities and duties of bearing and raising children and family-related duties. And that takes priority over everything else. And when that happens, automatically they have to step back in their kind of a progress in the workplace and so on. So they're, they lose out on kind of reaching up to a level of power equation. And also partly this is a kind of a genuine issue, but then also the other issue is that of mindset. There is a mindset that probably women cannot be good leaders, good bosses, or cannot take complex decisions, or they are not as informed maybe, or as capable maybe, or some such thing. So that is the reason why they don't reach up to that level. I mean, the classical example is United States of America. No woman president so far. I mean, the women have tried. It's not that they haven't. They do. and they do very well, up to a certain level, and beyond that when it comes. So it doesn't happen. So there have to be, and there is something, which comes as an obstacle for them to reach up to that level. And then patriarchy is something which is deeply rooted, which particularly more so in Indian setup, but also overall across the world. I mean, you go to Middle East, you go to Africa, you go to South America, you go to all Asian, countries, even the developed world, Europe and America. There is this mindset that the place of women is in the house, and then so when they step out, go beyond this, the step out of their homes and try to work and in parallel and tandem with their male counterparts. So there are obstacles, and there is a mindset that kind of brings them down and doesn't let them grow. And I should also say that the women themselves also have difficulties, like cultural grooming that they go through, in societies, more so in India. Right from early childhood, they are groomed and they are taught to be submissive, to be quiet, to make, not express, not ask for things, not make demands, not be noisy, not be loud, not be overactive, running around, jumpy, and so on and so forth. So all these things are the kind of cultural constraints and restraints. And this actually gets ingrained in them, and they internalize it. And eventually, I think all of us, including me, I would say, we are taught to be okay, we are taught to be, quiet and not, ask for things, not ask for your right, not make a demand, and accommodate, adjust, give up, and so on. So this is something which is I see in the current times, in Indian scenario, a very major limiting factor for women. When I meet all my women colleagues, psychiatrists, I always tell them, I said, step out of your comfort zone. Don't try to huddle only among women themselves. You have to kind of, if you want to compete and you want to come forward, then you take up the challenge and go forward. Reservation is not the answer and not even required, not necessary. It should be making space and place for equal opportunity, which our constitution and country grants us. Let's make use of it. So this should be done. But the counterpart, I must also place a little kind of a counterbalancing thought here, that we must have the rights that are granted to women must be balanced against the responsibilities. I think at this time, somehow the pendulum is shifting to the other extreme. Women and young girls nowadays, I'm not talking of women of my age and era, we were kind of a very different, groomed and raised in a very different societal, environment. But now the current environment, the liberalization, the kind of rights that the government has provided. So women have changed completely, the young girls. So they don't think that the household is their responsibility. They don't think that the other things like, taking responsibility for childcare, for home, for sick, for cooking, for other things is their responsibility. And what they are looking for is kind of in marriage, they are looking for just fun and games and nothing else. And which is not true. Marriage is not just a lifelong party. It's not fun and games. It's not something that where a man is the provider and has to provide you forever and for everything, आपके नाज नखरे भी उठाएगा और आपको सब कुछ देगा, ये सब है, and then you don't take up and accept any responsibility. That is not correct. And law has also been kind of on the side of women. That's great. But I think this we need to keep in mind. And as a society, as parents, as elders, we need to take care of our kind of, parenting and culture, that we have these rights counterbalanced with responsibilities and duties. Genders are complementary. They are not one better than the other. They are not one or the other. They are not equal. They are different. Men and women, I mean, let's not talk of equality in opportunity, but they are different and they are complementary. Nobody can succeed without the other gender. No. A woman cannot succeed without the support of men in the family, and vice versa. When there are men succeeding, there is somebody at the back, at the home, and in the background taking care of so many other things. And same is true for women. So I think we need, as mental health professionals, we need to propagate this message and not just let things go too far in extremes, so that we start facing a kind of a backlash. Should not happen. And I am very glad to be here today, and I would be very keen to listen to the two illustrious speakers, Aruna and who is the second one?
Pallavi Hoskote, ma'am.
Pallavi. And I don't know how they are planning to, and what they are going to speak about, but certainly I'm sure this would be a very, very informative talk. And I should thank the organizers, Dr. Uma Shankar and George Reddy, for sending me over the memento and the gift, to honor much in advance, and also delivered to me at my home. I mean, I am really overwhelmed and by this gesture of yours. This doesn't happen in a virtual classroom. Everything should have been or could have been virtual, and that was fine. But this is in real time. Thank you so very much. And thank you very much.
Thank you for really portraying the painting of timelines so well for us, ma'am. This itself looks like a speech, and we can go on listening to you. It looks as if the whole painting of life, you so well portrayed it in the timeline and brought out everything in such a concise way. Thank you so much for the message. And can we request you to get in some of your family member to felicitate you on our behalf? We would be thankful to them if they can do that.
Ironically, I'm alone by myself. My son has gone to Delhi and
Okay.
is for
Okay,
work.
ma'am.
And so,
Okay, ma'am.
but I have this in front of me. I accept with grateful thanks to all of you this memento that you have sent me with so much love and respect. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you,
And
So
ma'am.
much more difficult task of introducing the chairpersons for today. Our first chairperson today is Dr. K. Ramakrishnan sir, who is the Managing Director and CEO of Atma Hospitals and Research. He is the chairman of Atma Special School, Executive Secretary of Shantivanam, Home for the Homeless Mentally Ill, and Vice President of Indian Red Cross Society, Trichy. Sir is also the chairperson of the Task Force on Homeless Persons with Mental Illness, Indian Psychiatric Society. Sir has been the president of Indian Psychiatric Society South Zonal Branch for the year 2021. And most above everything, I think if I have to read out Sir's CV, it will be a webinar in itself. So I'll just cut it short and introduce Sir most fondly as the founder of Sammanvi. It is in Sir's tenure that Samanvi has been born, and it is the brainchild of Sir. Sir, thank you very much again. We thank you endlessly for forming the Women Empowerment Committee and giving us a chance to name it Samanvi. Thank you so much, sir. And among he has been endowed with many awards, and sir is a writer. Special mention I would make is sir's writing on Oh Mind, Can I Know You is a handbook written by sir on mental health and mental disorders in Tamil language. I request sir to translate it into English for people like us. It is really interesting to go through that. And sir has been a recipient of many prestigious awards. Some of them are Samuha Seva Mani Award, Outstanding Service for the Outstanding Service in Mental Health by Holiness Kanchi Acharya. Sir is also a recipient of Dr. VKR Award and Heroes of Rehabilitation, World Association of Psychosocial Rehabilitation Indian Chapter, and so on and so forth. Sir has received more than 20 awards so far. With this little introduction, I would quickly move on to introduce our next chairperson, Dr. Indumati Madam. Madam, I think I introduce our second chairperson, Dr. Indumati Madam. Indumati Madam has been working in the field of psychiatry since 2005. Madam, among many other responsibilities, Madam is the founder and consultant psychiatrist of Mati's Mind Care Clinic. I really love Madam's clinic name since 2020. And Madam has contributed, among many things, Madam has contributed as a co-author to the clinical guidelines of IPS in the management of psychiatric disorders during perinatal period. And Madam has also been the editor of gender trauma book that the South Zone has come up with last year, which was launched. And Madam is a recipient of IPS Women Resilient Award 2021. Distinguished Services to Medical Community Award from IMA Tamil Nadu in 24. And Madam is also has a certificate of appreciation from IPS Tamil Nadu chapter for community service in 2023. With this, she is also the advisor of Samanvi, as everybody has mentioned before. Madam is a pillar of support and always there for us whenever we need her. Thank you, Madam. Thank you for accepting to be the chairperson for the session today. I now hand over the uh, session to Dr. Elsie Oman for introducing the speakers for today. Thank you. Dr. Veda, can you take over? Dr. Aruna Yadial definitely doesn't need a lot of introduction. She's so famous, and she's a professor of Department of Psychiatry, Father Muller Medical College, and she is now the speaker, and she has held many positions in the state IPS, and also she's been associated with Samanvi for the past 3 years. She's been an editor of gender trauma, and she has spent many books in the field of psychiatry for mental health and even otherwise. She's a poet, everybody knows. I think all the women brigade group knows and have been relishing her poems for a very long time now. Thank you for being the speaker and taking up this crucial and a very sensitive topic, Aruna. And our next speaker is Dr. Pallavi. She is the director and CEO of MediLeaders, which trains doctors in leadership positions. So we felt that she is the right person for the topic today. Over to you, Dr. Aruna, to carry on the session.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, you are audible.
I will just start sharing my screen immediately. Meanwhile, I thank the organizers. I thank my own Samanvi team for having me here. We had the almost similar topic as a symposium in ANSIPS. And Nivedita thought that, it would be better if you could have a better audience. And I tweaked the presentation to include all women, not just psychiatrists. And today, Dr. Savita is with us. She's been an inspiration for all of us. And in the presentation, I would like to say that, as Madam said, everything begins at home. So closer home also, I would present some statistics like how it is in the field of psychiatrists for us, for women psychiatrists, and that a little bit of generalization to all working women in workspace. So whatever Savita ma'am told today, a little bit of that will be told in detail in my presentation. So only I
Nothing. Just
overshooting in time, or I request Dr. Veda, who is the convener, if I am just overshooting in time, just let me know so that I can end it up soon. So I women in work and power space of India, from enrollment to empowerment. So I will start telling the statistics of something closer home. How is it in the Indian Psychiatric Society? How is it in the psychiatrist field for us, for women? And then probably I will move on to general. So this webinar actually aims to shed light on the current scenario of underrepresentation of women in work and power space. We see a lot of people taking up psychiatry, but we don't see all of them in decision-making forums as of now. So these are the presenters and subtopics where I will be telling more about the current scenario. My co-speaker will be speaking on barriers and hurdles responsible for this underrepresentation. 1 minute. This Samanvi was I was there from the second team of Samanvi, I can say. It is a Women Empowerment Committee of South Zone, and these are all the members. So what is the current scenario like? How has the scene changed for females in psychiatry or field of mental health from then to now? We had a lot of people, but closer home, if we see from, there were very few women psychiatrists 3 to 4 decades back. We could actually count it on the fingers of a single hand, actually. And it has changed to now where we are actually standing on the shoulders of gains. Stalwarts like Sharda Menon, Dr. Indira, Dr. Gauri Devi, Lakshmi Vijay Kumar, Dr. Tara. Recently, I had Dr. Prabha Chandra, who has been a great mentor. Dr. Pratima Murthy inspired others through their work. And today's great thing is Dr. Savita Malhotra. She has become the IPS president, and I put her in the coming slides. So the current trends actually reflects, the Indian scenario actually reflects the global trends also. 50% of all medical students globally are today females. You can say easily that now 70% in India is medical students are females. 1/3 of all academic medical faculty are females. PG residents, almost 40% account for females. It's a 2019 survey. We are already 5 years late in this. There are female predominant specializations like OBG, pediatrics, and psychiatry is also one of the specialty where there is a female predominance, 57%. It has gradually increased, and in probably 2024, it has reached up to 64% as of now. Trends in psychiatry has also been worldwide. USA shows that in 40 to 45% of PG residency in psychiatry is taken up by females. Same thing in UK, Ireland, Canada, and India has shown the similar trend. It is in tandem with the global trends, but we are late by a decade probably. Till 1980s, if you see, it was just single or double digit of female psychiatrists. It has increased now. In 2006, 14.6% of IPS members were women. Same thing, 21-22, it is around 29%. But if you see, the life fellows are only 16%, and that is 529 out of 3,000 members who have voting rights or who matter in decision-making forums. So today there are more and more females taking up psychiatry, but the real question here is not the quantity, but the quality. Is it having any impact on the mental health care landscape as such? That is yet to be studied or seen through hard research or something like that. So what is actually happening in the Indian Psychiatric Society powerhouse? There are very small percentage of life fellows, only 19% as of now. And in IPS, there is one female office bearer in the main EC 24 to 25. Since inception, I think I'm mistaken here. Maybe 3 female presidents, I think 5 presidents maybe. And Dr. Savita Malhotra is there with us. And I'm very proud and inspired that madam is become the president of IPS. There are no females as zonal representatives in the current EC. Subcommittees almost out of 29, 8, that is amounts to 27%. Specialty section again 36%, task forces 34%. But if you see the important part or important things where power is concentrated, internal auditing committee, there are no females. Election commission, there are no females. Tribunal doesn't have females. Award committee doesn't have females. So these are the things which are, heavily politicized, or, those carry power or influence. So these don't have females as of now. What happens in the Indian journal of psychiatry scene? We know that women don't lack in content or talent or in the writing or in academics thing. But so far, IJP has had no woman editor so far. It's been 50, since independence, we are having IJP, but we didn't have a female editor. No women as associate editors and deputy editors. No women in editorial advisory group, but there are people in the editorial board. In assistant editors, almost we are reaching a 50%, and that's an improvement from the 2022 scene. No females are there as statistical editors or ombudsman. There are few people in specialty field editors and in editorial board and journal committee, and there are few in the international board as well. Wherever we see as faculty positions, small percentage are there, but in the senior faculty position, there are less, like professors or heads of the department are less. NIMHANS has almost 13% of females as faculty people, and you have to see that 50% of them are concentrated in the CAP specialty. Going on to stereotyping, telling that, child and adolescent psychiatry is better handled by women. In JIPMER, AIMS, PGI, similar percentages all showed a similar picture of a top light and bottom heavy. That there are many females in the entry positions rather than in the leadership positions. So the question that remains is, what could be the reasons for this underrepresentation in power sectors or in decision-making sectors, or where it actually matters? Why do they hit the glass ceiling so soon? And what can organizations like IPS or IPS-SZ do in this regard? So there are many reasons for the paradox, and Dr. Savita Malhotra, while giving the introduction, told about it beautifully rather. One is the organizational structure and system which doesn't allow the females to grow up to their potential. There is overt and covert sexism present in everyday life. Mental models of gender, not only of women, but also of our male counterparts. The societal ethos also dictates certain terms. Work-family role conflicts have been there since time immemorial. There are individual preferences. Some women might not want what everybody is forcing them to have. The female biology, which includes both the body and the psyche, might be reason for this paradox which is present. So the organizational system, we see a decades-old established system, and it is not keeping with the times. Reproductive years, unfortunately or fortunately, coincide with career advancement years. And to date, at least in my university, in the state, Karnataka University, there is no maternity leave for PG residents. Minimal or no on-site childcare or baby care facilities, no options for career revival after break, and minimal research on these issues in developing countries, including India. Nobody wants to speak about it. Even well-meaning men have told me to just shut up about this matter, because women are going to take advantage of maternity benefits if given. And sexism, it is a kind of a prejudice based on a person's sex or gender. If sexism is present, it usually leads to sexual harassment, subtle biases, cultural gender stereotypes, and gender schemas, which discriminate women based on their gender rather than anything else. And there are mental models of gender. If you see the same qualities in a male and female work opposite for both of them. Let us say a woman is, very crisp in decision making, and she's very firm and everything. It goes against her. She's devil, or, she's very cutthroat, or she is very this and all. The same qualities in men will be considered as leadership qualities, very macho and, very masculine. So success and likability are opposite for women. The more successful she is, she's not liked by many people. Both men and women tend to, distance her or see her as something different, whereas it goes in the same direction for most men. So the blunt truth will amount to this, that women cannot realize their full potential until the men in power are willing to examine their own mental models of gender and use their power to challenge gender stereotypes of their own colleagues. And it happens, charity begins at home. Probably they have to introspect and question themselves first, and then question their peers also about that. So the glass ceiling, because of all these things, it is, so this leads to the glass ceiling where everything accumulates together, and it leads to a cumulative career disadvantage for females, and women also tend to internalize these difficulties, and it leads to a personal internal mental models. That is very interesting, because everything tends to point out at us, and then we develop our own mental models, and then hit a personal glass ceiling, which happens to be a hindrance for all kind of career advancement. And these internal mental models are quite interesting, because we ourselves have gone through most of this, or at least few of this. First is the imposter syndrome. Any woman receives any award, they have this self-doubt going on in them. The phenomenon of people being plagued by self-doubt. Did I really deserve this award? What was so special in me? Maybe you ask any woman who has won award. No, it is okay. They are very modest about it. They don't want to own up their even award. So feel unnecessary fraudulent. Can I carry it on? Can I live up to the image? So underestimate their success and achievement, which I hardly see in any successful men. It leads to decreased self-confidence and happens to be a self-fulfilling prophecy at the end of the day. The tiara syndrome, this is I see in quite a number of women, and where women expect that if they keep on doing their job well, somebody will just notice them and keep a tiara on their head. Oh, you're very good. I think you should head the department. I think you should become the committee head, something like that. It never happens until you go and ask for that position. Probably you're not going to get it, but we are too shy to advertise for ourselves or ask for ourselves. So we think that everybody has seen my work, so they will give that position to me. So the remedy is advocating for oneself, but with great care. You have to take risk. You have to face being said no quite a lot of times. You have to choose growth over stagnancy, to step out of the comfort zone, just like our president has said. Challenge ourselves each day. It is not competition with others, but I have to be a better Aruna tomorrow than what I was today. So that should be the competition. And ask for promotions. If you don't ask, you are the person who is tend to doing it, and you don't have to lose your cool over it. Do it all with a smile, so that people can't blame fingers on that. The pseudo tough syndrome, where people put women especially put on a same kind of fake all work personas, that we need to be taken very seriously in workplace. So we feel obliged to suppress all kind of emotions. Don't cry at work. Don't discuss their children at work, and feel that if I cry, I will be seen as weak and embarrassing. If there is a tear gland, it is functional. You don't have any abnormality. I think you should cry whenever you want. It is your right. Just like men can get angry, you can cry too. It is your right, I feel. You can cry and let it out. There is no constitutional rule that you shouldn't cry. And the remedy is authenticity is better than perfection. You don't have to put a glycerine and show that you are sad. But if tears come, let it show. Cry and move on. You don't have to dwell in self pity for that. Seek and speak your truth. The truth might not be everybody's truth, but the truth, what it seems to you to be the truth, you can always speak it. There is maternal gatekeeping. I have seen this, that we not only mother our children, we tend to mother the whole department, whole PGs, then our husbands, brothers, father-in-law, mother-in-law, whoever comes under orbit, we are the universal mothers. That is what we do usually, and then it becomes too much for us to handle. So we tell them, no, you don't do this job properly, so let me do. Tiffin, you will not pack properly. Bag, I will teach the child. We are so much perfectionists that we want things done our way. So naturally, that maternal gatekeeping, we take it on ourselves, and that the burden becomes too much. So we have to remember that all our marriages are works in progress. There is no ideal marriage or marriage goals at all. And spousal support becomes very important for professional success. You take any successful woman, if they have a family life, that husband is supportive. Otherwise, it becomes a kind of where the husband is very possessive or jealous or insecure in his own feelings, then they don't let the woman in the marriage succeed at all. So equality between partners has great benefits, not just for the woman, but both partners. It leads to happier relationship, develops character in the partner, sets stage for the next generation. Your son is seeing that how his father behaves with his wife. So he also tends to show that respect and support for his wife. And this is an good, I have put it in capitals, it leads to good sex life too if there is equal partnership between partners. The great guilt trip trap is what I have seen in women. Women at workplace tend to feel guilty twice over. At home, we start comparing ourselves with stay-at-home moms. We are not as good at them. She dressed her son for a fancy dress like a golden Gandhi, whereas I sent him as a Nehru, just white kurta, white pajama with one rose. So I'm bad than that mother. In workplace, we start comparing ourselves with full-time fathers. So, we tend to think that we are not as good as our contemporary men. So it's a double-edged sword that happens. So we have to remember that there is no need of intensive mothering, intensive career at both workplaces. Quality time is much more important than quantity, and research is in favor of working mothers. Kids of working mothers know how to respect boundaries, know how to respect their own mothers, and also they tend to be more independent, more academically achievers than people of stay-home mothers. So there is nothing to feel guilty about. We have to identify priorities, focus, make choices, set limits, and we can have them all at some stage. That is what we should be aiming for. And the ostrich syndrome we have seen not just in men, also in women. Women hide themselves in times of speaking up because they don't want to, bring up controversial topics. If I say something, I will be the, negative person, or I will be looked up as a rebel, or these kind of things, or afraid to be identified as feminist sometimes, and afraid to, display senior male colleagues. Sometimes we don't have the courage to be disliked. That is what we feel, everybody should like me, everybody, I should be the most popular person. So when we develop that courage to be disliked, I think we will stand up and speak the truth, or whatever we see as the truth. So the end quote would be, if we can find cures to cancer and understand the human genome, which is a tough call actually, why should it be so hard to believe that we can fix the culture of our profession? So this was told by Nancy Andrews, who was Dean of Duke University of Medicine. So with that, I think hopefully I have not overshooted my time. I have kept some time for my co-speaker. We can take questions at the end is what I feel. Stop share, Avinda.
Yeah, over to you, Dr. Pallavi.
Hello,
Hello.
can you all hear me?
Yes,
Yes,
we
madam.
can hear
Please.
you.
Yes.
Yes.
Sorry for the delay. I think there was a bit of an issue. Thank you so much, Samanvi, for giving me this opportunity. The first time I heard about Samanvi was from Dr. Indu. A year ago, I got a message late into the night, and I was like, "Who is this?" I was wondering, and it was Dr. Indu, and she said, she works for Samanvi, and she told me all about it, and I was very, very impressed with what they were doing, and then after that, I've met Dr. Aruna and Dr. Uma Jyoti ma'am and Dr. Nivedita, and they're all empowering women. And I can't thank Samanvi enough for this opportunity. I won't waste too much time on, try to not waste too much time. I'll kind of dig right in, and I will talk about barriers and hurdles responsible for underrepresentation of women in professional and power space. We did a little survey. What is happening? Okay. We did a little survey with regards to the same topic. And this was actually, I've distributed amongst psychiatrists, male and female as well. It included 12 multiple choice questions and 2 open-ended questions. And probably more than 700 people received this through WhatsApp. And 132 of them were happy to answer the questionnaire. 81.8 of them were 81.8 of them were women who answered the survey, and a small number of men were happy to answer this. And majority of them did believe that women were underrepresented in leadership roles. Then, do women face gender bias discrimination. 50% of them were under the opinion that there was a lot of gender biased discrimination at workplace. And when it came to work pay, 70.5% of them believed that they were paid equal. Is there lack of mentorship was the other question asked. 44.7% of them did not agree, while 39.4% of them said women did have a lack of mentorship. And then majority of them did believe that there was lack of participation of women in leadership roles. Then is there lack of ample networking and communication opportunities for women? 43.9% of them said there was, ample opportunities, while 30.3% of them said no. Some of them did say that because, of the social media networking and all that, now they have better opportunities. And do women themselves have negative views of their competency as leaders? 27.3% of them said they had negative views. Is there prejudice while evaluating women's competence as leaders? 57.6 of them agreed, while 12.9% of them strongly agreed to this. So majority of them did agree that there was prejudice while evaluating women's competence as leaders. And is work-life balance a barrier to leadership roles? Again, here majority of them did agree that leadership, work-life balance was a barrier to this. Do women professionals face more sexual harassment than men from their colleagues at workplace? 34.8% of them said yes, while 30.3% were neutral, and 25.8% disagreed with this. Is parenting, caring, and homemaking activities a hurdle to leadership roles? 78% of the people said, agreed that it was a hurdle, big hurdle, in fact. And we asked two open-ended questions. Why do you feel that the question asked was, why do you feel that there are less women who take up leadership roles in various posts? These were a few comments that I have picked up. Difficulty to balance multiple roles professionally and personally. Then priorities are children, elderly parents rather than work commitments. Then somebody said they're not given equal opportunities, and even if they're given equal opportunities, many women hesitate to take up roles. Then fear of losing, then power of hunger of men putting them off, gender discrimination, lack of trust on women as leaders. Then many of them do not want to get into the political, aspects of the society. And somebody said women are not taken up seriously at all. So the other thing was we asked them if they wanted to make any other comments. So there was somebody who said traditionally in a male-dominated society, women face hindrance to take up leadership roles. In the society, males are perceived as strong and more efficient, and this makes it hard for women. Then somebody went on to say fellow encouragement from the other male leaders will take us a long way. Then somebody with a vision has said, more students are being enrolled into institutions. Probably the gender ratio will flip in the next coming years. But again, the leadership role, taking up leadership roles again is a question that remains to be answered. And then the other one, somebody said male colleagues constantly criticizing and passing opinions or view and degrading them puts them off. Okay, so I was told that this is open to all. So teaching is, a very women-dominated field as per the UNESCO, and they've also found that. Despite it being women dominated, the top tier leadership roles are again still in the hands of men. And the primary education may be women dominated, but the higher education is still a male dominated field. And then the corporate sector, 66% of them are men who have the top management roles, while only 34% of the women occupy. 66% of the men hold management roles, while 34% of the women hold these roles. And then engineering, construction, manufacturing, politics, armed forces are all male dominated, while teaching, nursing, healthcare, social work, all that is a woman-dominated field. So Rossler et al., they conducted a survey in 2023. They found two um, reasons for the hurdles. One is the negative attitudes of women themselves with regards to self-promotion and networking. And the other was the environmental barriers, that is lack of support and opportunities and gender discrimination. So women in the survey that they did, in the study that they conducted, the women reported higher rates of women reported higher rates of gender discrimination, and women also agreed that institutions had less activities when it came to training with regards to gender bias. And there was also this very quite often self-reported that pregnancy, maternity leave, breastfeeding were deemed to be maternal discrimination. And then higher income countries compared to middle income countries reported institutional support with respect to career progression rather than the developing country. Okay. A systematic review that was conducted showed that 27% of the women trainees experienced sexual harassment, while compared to the 5% of the men that experienced sexual harassment. 71% of them did not even, notify this to their institutions, and 51% of them of these 71% said they were afraid of retaliation. And 56% of those who reported they said they had bad experiences with this, and so they just did not go on to bother about it further. So in just to summarize, the reasons or the barriers include lack of equal opportunity during recruitment process, then lack of mentorship, sponsorship, leadership development. The institutional environment was not conducive, and the lack of opportunities when it came to promotion, then gender bias discrimination, and fewer opportunities for networking and collaboration. And then to further it, you have sex role orientation, negative self-use of effectiveness of women as themselves as leaders, then prejudice while evaluating women's competence as leaders, and life work responsibilities. But if we all believe that this is only, these are the only things that are hurdles to women with respect to their career, no, it begins for a lot of them, it begins at home. Probably they've seen struggle since their birth, with their own differentiation between their own siblings, the male siblings at home. And then probably through their education, their career choices. I mean, all that adds to a struggle of women as to, where she gets. And also, God knows how many women are, actually in difficult relationships, maybe facing abuse, physical, mental, emotional, marital rapes, and then they still come out to work. And, this all these hurdles that they are facing at home, and what they face at workspace really adds up to this. And also there is something, you have to give up your career for your family, and you take care of your husband and children. These are the kind of things that women face, and they work towards it. And probably despite of all the challenges that women are facing, um, they still rise up and work towards it. And those ones that are finding it a bit difficult, I think, and difficult to face this, should seek help that they need. Okay, some of the theories behind it already was covered by Dr. Aruna, but there are a few more here. Backlash avoidance theories, where women face negative social consequences of self-promotion. They fear that. And then the women compared to men were described as lacking in confidence by their faculty, even after adjusting faculty gender, numeric rating, and postgraduate year. Then there's something called modesty norm, where expectations based on culture that women should be nice and prim, proper, and not too demanding. And the imposter syndrome that Dr. Aruna has already covered, so I'll not go into details about it. So how do we deal with this? Implications for policies, practice, and research. Self-promotion and networking skills throughout career path need to be achieved through raising awareness and on gender related issues, having these international and national associations that could act as hubs to attain some transformational change with this regard. Then training activities during undergraduate and postgraduate education to break barriers, gender equity training, policies and processes to advance providing mentorship and assistance for women. Creating a diverse, respectful, and an inclusive environment and introducing them into procedures and policies. Then committee to track hold of these institutions, cultivating supportive work cultures within the community with the male as well as female colleagues. Supporting each other is extremely important. Then implementing open doors and zero tolerance and creating safer environments at workplace. And leadership training becomes mandatory not only for women but men as well, and regular reviews. So, the World Health Organization outlined 4 aspects in its framework for women leadership. That is, first one is to lay groundwork for equality, and then identify social norms and preconceptions that already exist. Then address workspace systems and cultures and empower women to achieve. Then exposing women to positive role models is extremely important. You never know, inspiration, help, advice always comes in handy. Then practical advice and with regards to behaviors and attitudes to build successful careers, and working together with men that we already talked about. So, a lot of academic institutions offer gender bias and anti harassment training, supposedly, but this lacks critical group dialogue and thinking to bring about transformational behavior. So, and also external feedback is very critical to see if these milestones are achieved, because internal audits probably will help one understand what is happening inside the organization, but an external feedback is quite critical so that you act upon it. So this is open call to deans and leaders and all professional groups to bring about transformative changes to create an inclusive and a safe and a respectful environment for all genders. And then call to partners of young women to share the burden of homemaking and parenting equally, because both of them are working, as equal partners. And call for women to reflect and stop avoiding, networking and self promotion. Go out there and um, fight it out. The other thing is, we've done all this, we've spoken about policies and, to have in place protocols and everything, but how do you do it mindfully? It's just not a women issue, it's everybody's issue. Okay, we need to break stereotypes. So, fair visibility is more important than equal visibility, which means all men becoming pilots and all women becoming nurses is not a done deal anymore. So, women are going out there to achieve and breaking stereotypes. So, activities associated with men are rewarded more than those with women. So, value and appreciate women's contributions. Avoid gender stereotypes. I don't know if it's a compliment to say if women are more cooperative and men are more competitive. And also associating red as being emotional or blue being a stable thing, and associating red and pink with women and blue with men. All these stereotypes, I think it's high time it went out. And acknowledge diversity, because pay attention to how our genders are intersecting with identities like race, ethnicity, class, income, disabilities, sexual orientation, because this creates a unique complex pattern. And when we work with it, we need to work with all this in mind, and how this influences a person's life. Be gender inclusive. Don't see them as powerless. Don't see women as powerless in terms of, when adversities are there within your organization or anywhere. Give them credit, however difficult the situation may be, or probably that maybe it's out of somebody's hand as well. Despite that, credit their effort. And a lot of times, victims of abuse and things like that, we say victims. Instead, say survivors. It makes a huge difference. Okay, and don't look down upon women. We're doing this mindfully. So, speak of women's achievement as attributing to structural gender inequality rather than her gender. So, it's not good to say, oh, despite she being a woman, she became the president, is not a done deal. Despite having structural gender inequality, she is the president. Makes much better impression. So just have an open mind. The challenge is, there is a huge challenge here ahead of us in terms of there's already, it's already engraved in our culture, in our genes, the patriarchy and everything. We need to outgrow this, and this change, we need to do this quite mindfully. And it's not an easy task, because this whole scenario needs to change. But I think high time we get started with that and uplift each other. So many times women themselves are pushing each other down. I mean, it's more so, I think, in the corporate world is what we see. I think women themselves have to uplift each other. And with this, I guess I come to the end of my presentation.
That was a beautiful PPT and a wonderful presentation, Dr. Pallavi. I now hand over the session to Dr. K. Ramakrishnan sir, the chairperson of today's webinar, to address the gathering and also reflect on the topic. Ramakrishnan sir.
Thank you, madam, for your opportunity, giving me this.
Thank you.
And I am proud that someone is growing like anything. And I just mentioned in our chat that Madam Malhotra should start someone in IPS. So things are not as bad as we think in India. That's what I would say. Because we have got one president, a woman president. Already we had another woman president of India. Two powerful women in state ministers, one powerful lady as IPS president. So these things are going. The only thing we have to take it ourselves. When there is no approval from others, we have to take it. We have to take our rights. That's what I keep telling our human generation. Because people, even for men folk, unless you knock the door, nobody will recognize you. Whatever it is. That is what is politics, especially about the IPS office bearers. There is no women and other things. But you see, there are only 529 life members. See, 2,000, 3,000 life members. So how will you ask for representation? That's one thing. So we have to improve our fellow members to become life members. And then only our representation, our voice will be there. Because women votes are not important for IPS candidates. Just 500. They concentrate more on other 3,000 numbers. Isn't it? That's how I take. But madam, I should say, but the madam, she fought so long till she won the battle. That's what I used to tell. You can take her as a role model to come up and get all the recognitions. That's what I would say. I think first Indumari, to your comments, and we can have one or two questions from the audience. And another important thing is 125 members are viewing this till the end of the meeting. Itself is a great compliment.
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
you,
Thank
sir.
you. I now request Dr. Indumati Madam, who is also the chairperson for the topic, to reflect on the session and also open the session for discussion by Dr. Abhirami.
Thank
Indu
you,
ma'am.
Dr. Nivedita. Yeah, yes, Doctor. So good evening, one and all. Thank you, Ramakrishnan sir. Actually, I think example I feel. It is the theme of Women's Mental Health Day of this year is Accelerate Action. But this Accelerate Action has been done 4-5 years back in our IPS South Zone by Ramakrishnan sir. He has, the topic is enrollment to empowerment. That is the answer. He has enrolled me as a member into the committee. Then gradually I have grown up, and as subsequent step we are taken up the leadership. This has been backed up by IPS South Zone team all along the way. And now we have inspired the people, and more people are eager to join, and we are mentoring. So in that way, I think we are living by example. So this is the answer. Thanks for Ramakrishnan sir and IPS South Zone for continuously backing up Samanvi. Now we have become the kind of one of the role model subcommittee in South Zone. And now IPS Savita ma'am herself has appreciated that, and she will take up to the next level. So thank you so much. I think both the speakers have done a great job. So I think we can open the discussion already. It is 9:25. People are still waiting eagerly. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Over to you, Dr. Abhirami.
Good evening all. I should thank Savita ma'am and George sir and the Samanvi team. I also thank Chairperson sir ma'am, speakers for their excellent presentation. And I extend my thanks to participants who listened to the session so far. Now the topic is open for discussion. I'll read out the questions, ma'am, one by one. They've posted in chat box, ma'am. First question, Dr. Makesh has asked, what are the cultural differences in empowerment of women in India as well as other countries? Any studies or surveys?
Dr. Abhirami, can I tell something on this point?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Sure, ma'am.
When they speak about cultural differences, when I was writing a chapter for self-immolation in young girls, I came upon a very interesting fact. We all know that marriage is a protective factor for suicide in women, right?
Yes,
this differs greatly among the cultures. If you see in the Western society, which is not as patriarchal as Eastern societies, it happened to be a protective factor. But as it moved from west to east, as the culture varied, the marriage started to become like a burden, and it ceased to be a protective factor for suicide for women. So that is the impact of culture on the mindset of the people who live in certain cultures. So if you ask if there is a cultural difference, definitely there is a cultural difference. More patriarchal societies, you can take the Middle East countries or the Eastern countries or the middle and low income countries where it is still developing, and they are steeped still in patriarchy. And sad to say, because India is also a patriarchal country, the men who are enjoying the benefits of patriarchy might not realize it, or they may want the system to go on like this, but it is still a patriarchal country. And yes, there is a cultural difference when it comes to empowerment. We have to ask for it now, but where there it is taken as granted that certain positions are for females or something like that. But we are not at least going retro. We are showing progress compared to our times where grandmother's time or mother's time, we are good way ahead. For example, my mother was the second child of the family, and she had three brothers after her. In spite of her getting a general merit seat in a medical, my grandfather couldn't afford to send her because he had three more sons, and he had to invest in the son's education rather than the daughters. The same scenario here in our family, in our generation, we might prefer to give equal importance to the education of girls and males. So it is like that. The culture does change along with time. So we are on a path of progress, is what would I say. And I have three books here. When I saw the question, I thought that this is one of the women's mental health books. It is edited mainly by Prabha ma'am, and was fortunate enough to be co-editor of this. One more book is Suicide by Immolation, which is a Springer's collection, and also our recent gender trauma book. So in this, we have a separate chapter on culture and how it affects the woman's mental health. So there are a lot of studies done on that also. There is a comparison between the Eastern and the Western societies and the cultural significance of what happens on its impact on women's mental health.
Excellent, ma'am. I think we have answered question. Shall we move to next question, ma'am? Fearing professional setbacks nowadays due to non-supportive families is making young women reject or neglect marriage and further children. Any thoughts about this, please, from Dr. Aruna, ma'am? Over to you.
Would Pallavi want to say something on that?
No, Aruna, go ahead. I've already covered all that.
See, why women are not having children? You have not made it lucrative for women. That's the answer I would like to give to all men out there. And I say to men, if men had the chance to bear pregnancy and undergo labor pain, the world population would be half by now, I will tell you. They wouldn't voluntarily do it. They wouldn't put themselves in the path of peril or path of pain so much. Because it is happening at the cost of women. The children are happening at the cost of women. The childbearing, the loss of your youth, or whatever you call it, or the emotional investment that women tend to make with each children they bore. Probably that is what is not making it look very lucrative for today's women. Had you made it very lucrative, the men and women together, had they made childbearing and child rearing for anybody, for men or women, very lucrative, I think women would want to have children. It is innate in them, but today's scenario isn't that conducive. Over generations, they haven't made childbearing and child rearing a lucrative thing for females, and that is why women are looking at it as a burden today. I wouldn't generalize it and tell that all women are like that or only career women are like that and all. I think one of the most gratifying roles in life that I have had is of being a mother. So I wouldn't say that I would give up motherhood for my career, or I would give up a career for my motherhood. I would rather say that career is one of my children. So along with my two children, career is also one of my child, and I would like to nurture it and see it grow, and that kind of thing. So it is not the same, but we cannot generalize telling that today's women don't want to bear children. The general tendency or trend has been like that, but for that, the society is also responsible.
There is negative
Can I talk?
balance.
I'm Dr. Prasad Rao. Can I talk?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Thank you very much for the opportunity. I really enjoyed both the lectures together, one after other. I think we should congratulate both Aruna and Pallavi for the work. Maybe way back in 2016, as a president, I was the person who brought the two women should be in the council. Hope that is one. But more importantly, in the last 3 years, I worked with two ladies as WPA presidents. One is Danuta Wasserman, who is the current president, and the previous Helen. Now, Danuta has made a very interesting change, and I was part of the planning committee, so we all decided that in the WPA presentation, 50% should be for women. So I thought I would bring this to your notice, and I congratulate the Samanvi team, and of course, I congratulate KRK, who originally has started during the term. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Ma'am, shall we read next questions, ma'am?
Yes, sir.
3 more questions are there, ma'am.
One more question and we can close it because it is 9:45.
Time happening times.
Okay, I'll read next question, ma'am. Communication is still a problem for females, whatever in their age. Maybe women are always bullied verbally about their modesty when they communicate with males. The world still accepts or agrees a woman must communicate through men of their family or friends, either for father, partner, male friend, son, etc. Any solutions on both sides, both the women who want to achieve and the world against her? Very good question. Dr. Pugalarsi is posted, ma'am. Ma'am, Aruna ma'am or Pallavi ma'am?
We'll just
We
have
expect
to
answers.
stop. We'll have to change the attitude, and women have to, go ahead and communicate and, not bother about all these. That is what, no, the thing is about overcoming all this. And women don't go out, then it's going to remain the same. So I guess women have to take the onus, and as well as the male colleagues. I'm sure there are only a few of them who may be that way. I think it just kind of the change of attitude should begin from home as well as in workplace, and I think we should all mindfully work towards it. That's all I'd say.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. And we have received full of compliments for both the speakers, ma'am. Many appreciated Dr. Aruna ma'am and Pallavi ma'am. Ma'am, shall we wind up or
Yeah,
shall we
you
read
can
one or two?
wind up.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Because it's
Over to
already like
Dr. Veda for vote of thanks, and we will be winding it up. Thank you all.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Yeah, good evening, one and all. It's indeed a privilege and honor as a convener of Samanvi to deliver this vote of thanks after a thought-provoking inaugural webinar. As we come to the end of this session, a few moments to express our gratitude to all those who have contributed to making it a resounding success. First and foremost, I would like to thank our chief guest, Dr. Savita Malhotra Madam, President IPS, for joining us in spite of her very busy schedule. Madam, your words of wisdom and insight have truly inspired us, and we are honored to have had an opportunity to learn from your vast experience. As emphasized by Madam, empowerment is not about dominance, it is about making space for others to rise alongside you. I would like to extend many thanks to our esteemed speakers, Dr. Aruna Yadiyar, Professor, Father Muller's Medical College, and Dr. Pallavi Hoskote, Director, MediLeaders, for their enlightening, thought-provoking, and inspiring presentations. I'm sure your words have left an indelible mark on our minds, and we are grateful for the knowledge and the insights the two of you have shared with us today. I would also like to extend my heartfelt thanks and gratitude to our dear chairpersons, Dr. Ramakrishnan Sir, Director, Atma Group of Hospitals, and Dr. Indumati R. Madam, Senior Consultant and Founder of Mathi's Mind Care Clinic, for their active participation, exceptional facilitation skills, and outstanding stewardship of the session. This webinar was definitely not possible without a vision. I take this opportunity to thank our own Dr. Uma Shankar Sir, President, IPS South Zone, for your visionary leadership for encouraging us in conducting this webinar. My sincere thanks to our dynamic Honorary General Secretary, Dr. George Reddy Sir, for constantly guiding us and helping us throughout towards the success of this program. I also thank Dr. Arul Sir, Dr. Mahesh Gowda Sir, and Dr. Rajshekhar Sir in their absentia, and also immediate past office bearers of IPS South Zone. I also extend a warm thanks to our Samanvi team, which is headed by Dr. Uma Jyoti Madam, Dr. Nivedita, Dr. Aruna, LC, Abhirami. To all our dear participants, I thank you all for actively joining us today. All your presence, active participation, and enthusiasm have made this webinar truly special. We hope that you have found the discussions and interactions as enriching and rewarding as we have. Lastly, I would like to extend my sincere thanks to our generous sponsors, East West Pharmaceuticals, especially Mr. Loknath, Business Manager, for your unwavering support and commitment towards this academic cause. We are thankful to your supporting team for all the technical assistance from handing over the mementos, helping us in preparing the brochure as well as the flyers. We look forward to continue with your collaboration even in the near future too. Thank you one and all. Over to Nivedita, ma'am.
Oh, that was a wonderful vote of thanks. Thank you, Veda. Thank you very much. Thank you all. And you still had 70 plus audience for vote of thanks. Thank you all, audience, for encouraging this webinar so well.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you all.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
ma'am.
Thank
you.
Thank you, Veda madam.
you, sir.
sir.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Reddy sir garu.
Function, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.